Before memory, before names, this land was already alive. Delaware lay beneath an endless sky, its rivers carving paths like veins of an ancient body. Forests stretched unbroken, alive with deer, fox, and black bear. The marshes breathed with herons and osprey, while the ocean's salt winds pushed against the shoreline. To those who would one day walk here, this was no wilderness. It was kin. Every tree carried spirit. Every stone had purpose. Every river held song. At night, the stars spilled across the heavens like grains of shining corn, and the people looked upward, not only to wonder, but to listen. For in the silence between wind and water, they heard the first teachings. The earth was alive, and they were woven into its fabric. The land did not belong to them, they belonged to the land. They came along the rivers, following the bending streams that led them through marsh and forest. Generations before history, families gathered in small villages, their lives tied to the cycles of fish and game, the gathering of roots, the turning of seasons. They shaped tools of stone and bone, carving edges sharp enough to split bark or cut deer hide. Their homes were rounded shelters of reed and wood, woven against the wind. At dawn, smoke curled from the fires, carrying the smell of roasted corn and the resin of pine. Children's laughter echoed across the water as elders shared stories older than memory itself. They lived close to the earth, not apart from it. The river gave them passage, the soil gave them food, and the sky gave them time. In this world, survival and spirit were never separate. They were one and the same. Life here was not easy. Winters pressed with hunger, the forests silent when game grew scarce. The people knew patience, waiting by frozen rivers for the fish to stir. They knew persistence, grinding corn with stone until hands grew calloused. Fire was their constant ally, a light against the long cold, a circle where stories gathered. Flint struck against flint, and sparks leapt into tinder like the first heartbeat of creation. With fire, they hardened spears, cooked food, and lit the night against prowling shadows. Yet survival was more than labor. It was rhythm. Every hand that shaped a tool, every hunter who tracked a deer, every woman who sowed seeds, all were part of a chain stretching back to ancestors unseen. In the struggle of survival, there was meaning. For to live was not just to endure, it was to honor the earth with each breath drawn. Beyond daily survival lay the sacred. On open ground beneath the wide sky, the people gathered in circles. Stones were placed with care, fire lit at the center. The circle was not only a gathering, it was a world in miniature. Elders spoke of the four directions, each carrying its own spirit, its own song. The east was dawn, new beginnings. The south was warmth and growth. The west was endings, and the north carried the silence of winter. As drums rose, feet stamped against the earth in rhythm, echoing the heartbeat of the land itself. Ceremonies bound them not only to each other, but to the unseen. Spirits of ancestors hovered close, listening in the smoke that curled toward the stars. The ceremonial circle was a reminder. They were never alone. Life was woven with death, and the world was larger than what the eye could see. In time, hands shaped the earth itself into monuments. Burial mounds rose along rivers and fields, their slopes smooth, their shapes deliberate. To an outsider, they might seem like mere hills, but to those who built them, they were doors between worlds. Within them, the bones of the departed rested, surrounded by offerings, stone tools, shells from the sea, copper carried from distant lands. The mounds were more than graves. They were messages to the future, markers of presence, proof that a people had lived, loved, and remembered. Each mound aligned with sky and river, speaking of a knowledge deeper than chance. They stood as silent guardians, rooted in soil yet reaching toward eternity. To walk among them was to walk among the ancestors. Even now, beneath centuries of growth, they wait, holding the memory of a world long unseen. The people of Delaware carried their world in story. Around the fire, under the turning constellations, they told of beings who shaped the rivers and carved the hills. The stars above were not distant, they were ancestors, watching, guiding, reminding. The river itself was spirit, its currents alive, carrying dreams downstream. In myth, great animals walked in the time before men, teaching humans how to live, hunt, and plant. Some spoke of a great turtle whose shell was the land itself, steady and enduring. Others told of birds who carried fire in their wings, gifting its spark to humankind. These stories were not entertainment. They were truth, remembered in rhythm, passed from elder to child. Through them, every sunrise had meaning, every hunt had purpose, every breath had weight. For in story, the people found not just memory, but the very shape of their world. In sleep, the veil thinned. Dreams were not mere shadows of the mind, they were visits. To dream was to walk in the company of ancestors, to listen to their counsel, to glimpse paths yet unseen. A hunter might dream of a deer and know where to find it at dawn. A mother might dream of water and know that rain would come. Dreams wove the living and the dead into one fabric. Shamans guided these journeys, painting their faces with ochre, chanting low to the beat of rattles. They carried tobacco as offerings, smoke rising like prayers. In trance they spoke with spirits of wind and stone, carrying messages back to the people. To ignore a dream was dangerous. To follow it was wisdom. For in the silence of the night, in the breath between worlds, the ancestors never truly left. Though the land was rich, it demanded resilience. Floods swelled rivers, drowning fields. Drought cracked the soil, leaving stalks brittle and empty. Storms tore across the coast, leaving villages battered. Yet in every season of struggle, the people adapted. They stored corn in baskets high above the damp. They fished in hidden inlets when rivers ran lean. They gathered roots, berries, and herbs that healed both body and spirit. Hardship taught endurance, but it also deepened gratitude. Each harvest was a celebration, each hunt a thanksgiving, each safe return from storm a gift. Around fires they sang not of despair but of balance, for they knew the earth gave and the earth took away. To live was to walk in rhythm with change, to accept that every season, no matter how harsh, carried both trial and teaching. Long before the colonies, whispers of strangers drifted through the stories. Traders from distant coasts carried shells, copper, and flint, exchanged across endless networks of rivers and trails. News of other peoples reached Delaware long before sails pierced the horizon. When the first European footsteps touched these shores, they entered a world already ancient. To the people here, the strangers seemed both human and otherworldly, bearing goods unlike any seen before, but also carrying omens of change. The Mounds stood as silent witnesses, watching the slow collision of worlds. For the Delaware people, these first encounters were not beginnings, but disruptions of a story already in motion. The ancestors had taught resilience, but what approached carried storms far greater than any known. And yet, in that moment, the land itself remained steady, as if waiting to see which story would endure. Today, roads stretch where rivers once wound freely. Fields of corn grow where circles of fire once burned. Suburban homes rest atop land that was once sacred ground. Yet beneath the soil, the echoes remain. Burial mounds still rise, half forgotten, covered in trees and grass. Ceremonial landscapes, invisible to the unknowing eye, still hold the memory of drums and chants. When the wind moves through the marsh, it carries the same song heard centuries ago. To walk here with open eyes is to feel presence, to sense that the past is not gone. It waits, patient beneath the surface. The people of Delaware are still here, descendants who carry the old names, the old stories, the old strength. The mounds remind us that this land is more than soil, it is memory, it is spirit, it is unseen but never lost.